Go into your room, that's right. Sit on that fat of yours and do nothing but listen to records.
Hello, I'm Costa Koulisakis from Sim Audio, and I'm here with Michael Fremer introducing the Moon 888 flagship power amplifiers. We have one pair of amplifiers over here. These are our reference amplifiers rated at 888 watts each. That's true RMS power, and that doubles down into 4 ohms, doubles down into 2, provided that your wall outlet can supply the necessary current, which in North America is unlikely to be the case.
I was going to run it into my dryer outlet, but I decided not to.
In reality, though, while it's nice to know on paper that the amplifiers continue to double down as long as you can provide the current, in real-world conditions with music, 888 watts is so much power already that it doesn't really become an issue at all.
I don't get much beyond, on some peaks I get to a couple hundred watts on just big drum thwacks. Otherwise it's minuscule.
So you'll have an enormous amount of reserve power that you won't use. But the reserve is good too.
Yeah.
The amplifiers weigh 250 pounds each.
Don't I know it?
Constructed of aluminum. I have loosened the 4 screws that hold the top cover on, and I will pop it off, talk a little bit about what makes the 888 special.
It's gas powered?
Steam powered, actually. Now, the top cover is made out of cast aluminum, and you can see when I flip it over, the various ribs that it has are engineered for vibration control, and the rough texture is actually a dozen coats of a special type of deadening paint that again is designed to suppress unwanted vibration even further. I will lay the cover aside. Now, looking at the inside of the 888s, one of the first things we notice are the 2 very large chrome-plated transformers. These are proprietary medical-grade transformers that are designed by us. The power supply is composed of 12 very large energy storage capacitors as a primary source of current delivery, followed by secondary and tertiary stages all the way to the output section. One of the things that is special about the 888s is the heatsink. And in an amplifier of this caliber, we have addressed an age-old problem of temperature control. We feel that when an amplifier reaches this level of performance, every last little thing can affect the sound quality. So the heatsink is very specially constructed. It is, again, cast aluminum and one huge monolithic piece. The benefit of having a heatsink of this design, rather than having extrusions that are bolted together as subassemblies to achieve the desired depth that you need, is that the temperature is more stable and carefully controlled from one end of the heatsink to the other. And in an amplifier of this size, where there's numerous output transistors, this degree of temperature control assures that the transistor on this side will always run at the same temperature as the transistor on that side. And with devices like semiconductors and resistors and so on, at this level of performance, changing the temperature ever so slightly does produce an audible effect, an audible difference in sound. So this is one of the special features. And of course, the fins of the heat sinks are all carefully engineered. On the inside, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a special series of channels and indentations and all that. All this, again, is for vibration control. In short, what we could say about the heat sinks is they are constructed using the same basic techniques and design philosophy as high-performance racing engines. It's all about controlling heat and dissipating it as much as possible.
What are those 2 tubular things next to those chokes? Down below.
These here?
No, next to them.
No, I think what you're seeing is a reflection off the chrome plating.
That's no.
Yes.
That is a reflection?
Yes.
It is?
That's a reflection of.
Oh, you're right, it is.
Absolutely.
That's impressively done in terms of how the... I mean, I want people to see that so they don't think I'm an idiot. Well, may think I'm an idiot anyway, but look, that looks like next to, if you're not looking carefully, but that's part of this enormous chrome-plated transformers. Okay.
Yes. All of with the exception of the cast aluminum heat sinks and the cast aluminum top, which have to be made of a special type of aluminum that is used for casting, Every other aluminum part in this amplifier is machined by us and is machined using 6061 T6 aluminum, which is aircraft grade aluminum. The reason why we use aircraft grade aluminum is because it's lighter and stiffer and dissipates heat a lot better. Now, there's
I believe it can fly.
Wings are an option, actually. So, this top cover here is magnetically coupled to the rest of the chassis, and I can simply remove it by pulling up on it like this, revealing the inner guts of the amplifier. And again, we're talking about the power supply, these large power supply caps. There's secondary ones over there, tertiary ones right on the output boards, the brown ones you see over there. And these are all custom made to our specification. They are very low ESR type caps. All the circuit boards are 4-layer boards. And the output sections that you see here are a little bit special too, in that because we have manufactured the heatsink out of cast aluminum, which has the added benefit that it allowed our engineers the ability to shape the heatsink in any way possible, far more flexibility than machining it. So it's really a very optimized heatsink for this type of application. The output boards are inset into the heatsink with semiconductors on both sides, and the ones on the underside are naturally pressed up against the heatsink for maximum thermal transfer, I should say, and temperature control. Again, all this is designed for sound performance. There's a large aluminum frame underneath that supports the entire power supply section of the amplifier.
So is this built by hand?
Well, the
boards are obviously stuffed. Right?
The boards are stuffed in our own factory.
Right.
That's all computer
but all this
controlled.
has to be assembled at some.
It's all assembled by hand.
How long does it take to assemble one of these?
I'm not entirely sure, but it's a dedicated team. When we are assembling 888s, we are not really producing much of anything else. It takes a good portion of the assembly team, both because of the complexity involved and because of the sheer weight of the amplifier to move it around, to put a pair of these together. My guess would be probably about, once you have all the sub-assemblies done, there's a week's worth of assembly work. Oh. Not including quality control after that. The power transformers, as I mentioned before, are made to our specification. They're medical grade, and furthermore, they're potted and epoxied.
Who is it these days? I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
Nothing.
Yes.
Sorry.
Medical grade, yes. Rendering them very, very quiet and very efficient despite their very large size. And part of the reason why we have this process, which we do in most of our other amplifiers as well, is that it makes the transformer more efficient. It can run a little bit cooler, generating less heat and converting more of its input into usable output power.
Very quiet.
Yes.
Don't buzz or hum.
Yes, and the larger the transformer, the more likely it is to hum. And of course, here we suppress it as much as possible by the whole potting thing and the fact that it's sandwiched between the front panel and this subframe over here. In fact, the only thing we do not make in the 888 are the output connectors. We looked long and hard at what was available in the marketplace, and a Japanese company called Furatech.
Oh, everybody knows Furatech.
Furatech.
Very famous company.
Yes, make some very high-quality rhodium-plated ones that really fit the bill for use on the 888. They have a built-in clutch, so you cannot over-tighten and twist the wire, which is very nice.
I like where they're positioned. I like how easy they are to get to. It's, because that counts. It matters to people.
Yeah, it does. It does. And there's two sets. Don't be fooled. It's not a stereo amplifier. It's a monoblock. But we provide two sets to allow for easy by-wiring for many people that have by-wiring capability and have invested in two sets of speaker cables. Some of the other less visible features of the amplifier are the feet, which for those that own a Volution product will know that we supply cones that you can adjust to level the amplifier or source component on a non-level surface. It would be terribly unfair and painful to ask someone to lift up an 888 to start turning cones. So what we've done in the 888, there's a special self-leveling system built into the feet whereby the bottom of the foot is attached to a thread that is spring-loaded. So when the amplifier is gently lowered onto its resting place, these feet will coil and turn in according to the weight of the amplifier, and the spring will apply the necessary amount of tension and stop the amplifier accordingly, so there's never any rock.
And then when you lift it up, it unsprings.
It unsprings itself. There isn't much movement. We're only talking about maybe a quarter of an inch, but that's all you need.
Yeah.
Who custom makes the capacitors for you?
The large power supply capacitors are custom made for us by Rubicon from Japan. And these are rated at 27,000 microfarads each. And if you do the math,
It's about 400,000.
well, if you just round it off at 30 and multiply by 12, and right then and there, you get 360. And then you add the secondary and the tertiary ones. You have over 400,000 microfarads of energy
power
storage.
a small city with the sample.
Yes, there is a dedicated soft start circuit that gently powers up the amplifier when you turn it on, because otherwise it would just suck a tremendous amount of juice and probably blow a circuit breaker at the same time. That's the gist of the 888s. But despite the massive appearance, everything that I've talked about, barring the very large power supply, is really designed for sonic finesse rather than just brute force.
Right.
Everything I talked about, temperature control, vibration control, these are aspects of amplifier design that are designed to make it sound better as opposed to making it more powerful.
And whose brand cable connects? See, this is what people say. Look at the thickness of that cable. It's a hoax, because once you get inside the amplifier, it's a skinny little cable. So it's a hoax, but of course it's not a hoax. But
Well, it's not a hoax.
On an
It's
inch basis,
remember
it's actually
remember
fair.
this is a single cable. One is positive, one is negative.
Right.
We use professional grade cable that you find in studios. This is most likely Mogami cable, and it is ultra high purity copper in our own custom braid with our own heat.
can I rewire that with some special cable?
I suppose you can.
No, I'm
if
not
you
going
like
to. I'm not going to. No, don't worry. Okay, well that's
That's the gist of the guts of the 888. There is a host of switches on the back for auto sensing a signal, for AC coupling or DC coupling the input depending on the preamplifier that you have,
right.
so on and so forth.
So it's flexible to make it match well with whatever you're using it with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hopefully one of your preamplifiers, but like in my case, that's not the situation. So you have to make it.
Absolutely, and we expect most users of the 888 will not necessarily have an 850p. They'll have another equally great preamplifier of their own that they wish to keep and hold on to, and we have to make the 888 as compatible as possible with that.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. I think people will
welcome.
find this infinitely fascinating, and the trolls will come on here and say it's all a lot of crap, because all you need is a receiver from the Sony receiver from the 70s.
100 watts.
100 watts. It measures perfectly, and all of this is just nonsense. But okay, fine, whatever you think. Think whatever you think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, America.